All righty. Okay, so I wanted to start the day off by kind of reminding us where we are on the schedule because I effed it up in the first place. So making sure we're all on the same page here. So today is our discussion and review day for the humanistic theory. See, all read Maslow and Rogers and Csikszentmihalyi for today. Monday is the day that your exam 2 is due. And so that is on Blackboard. You can work on it now. Some of you have already worked on it, I know. It's just due by Monday at midnight. Same thing as we did last time there was an exam. I will be here in my office if anyone wants to drop by and ask a question. But you don't have to come in Monday. You can just use that time to work on the exam or whatever you need to do. Just a couple reminders about the exam. So there are the same essays, or I guess they're really more short answers. I don't know why I call them essays, but just making sure you answer each part of each of these and that you turn in like a Word doc. And then when you go into the actual exam itself, last time, and this is my fault because I put the extra credit in the middle, just because people often skip it. But last time people were like, oh, extra credit, I'm done. Well, so the extra credit is here, but then after that are the identifications, and those are worth 20 points altogether. So make sure you do those. So they're basically just definitions of each of these concepts, and you choose one from each of the sets. So like for set 1, you're either going to do fixation or manifest and latent content. For 2, you're either going to do romantic attachment patterns or developmental line. For 3, either the OAT or B values. And then for 4, either design or flow. And these are 5-point answers, so kind of think about that when you're answering them. You should really explain it in a decent amount of detail. Any questions about the exam? Cool. So like I said, if you want to like finish it today and then you just have Monday off, awesome. If you need that time on Monday, use it for yourself. But it's like, do you want to save your progress? Dudes, I was just showing it. It's fine. Just sort of letting you know where we're going to be at after that is we'll cover traits and learning and the bio theories. And then you'll have one more exam. And then after that, we'll go into the simulation. So sort of one more unit on theory, and then you get to apply them, which is cool. All right, so today is a discussion day. And so what I'm going to do real quick is get the folks who are on Zoom in breakout rooms. And while I'm doing that, if folks in person want to break yourself up into discussion groups, feel free. And then I'll bring around the sheet. Folks in Zoom, I'm going to stop sharing here so that I can throw this in the chat. The version of the link that I'm giving you will allow you to open a copy of it. So everyone on Zoom, make sure you grab that link for yourself. And then I'm going to go ahead and set up the breakout rooms. Yeah, there'll be 3 breakout rooms, 3 to 4 people per room. I'm just checking my options. Perfect. So that'll send you off to the breakout rooms. And so should I will bring you. Can we divide this group into 2? Maybe better. So you like I'll do that in whatever way, just so that everybody gets to get the off. There you guys go. Ghost. I don't know. It's Halloween season, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually.
Yeah.
Back and forth. It's like, oh. Here. Yeah.
How's everybody doing? Anybody done?
Several or.
One more? Okay, cool. And again, y'all can talk about it. $10.50.
Okay, I'll come back.
Okay.
Alright, thanks.
Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and bring back our Zoom folks. And then we'll go ahead and start. I love the sound these scares me. It sounds like something's dying. All right, welcome back to our folks on Zoom. Hopefully y'all have had good discussions as well as the folks in person Zoom too. And so I'm gonna go ahead and since we had 6 groups, I think. So I'm gonna just sort of throw it out. And again, folks on Zoom, please feel free to copy paste your answers into the chat. But what did you all think of Maslow's idea that physiological needs can serve as channels for other kinds of needs? And then if anyone is willing to share an example, that's great. Anybody in here? Anybody on Zoom?
Thought it seemed pretty accurate. also translate for other needs. We talked a lot about being hungry and how that just like kind of takes over everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason hangry is a word, right? Yeah, other folks.
We agree that it seems accurate, but it's not like consistent, like psychological needs can manifest in like psychological ways and physiological ones can manifest.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, is that sometimes they are independent, right? And sometimes they're almost like at cross purposes, right? Where it seems like I should have some sort of emotional reaction to what's going on in my body right now, but I don't, right? And that can happen. Anything else that anyone else had that they want to bring up? All right, let's see. Sadie says we agree that needs can interact and possibly be intertwined. And an example is that when a person is lacking love or safety, food may become a comfort. Yeah, food's a big one, right? That we sort of express ourselves through. And so that was breakout room 3. How about room 1, which was Alexis, Kat, Sarah, and Whitney? Looks like Yana is chiming in, which I appreciate. They really agreed this is based on experience. It reminded me of watching people I care about turn to food for comfort after they lose someone you love. Yeah, that's like a big piece of mourning, right? If we think about the wake that we often have after funerals, right? Like there's a potluck a lot of times, right? It's very much about comfort food. You bring the family casseroles, at least that's what we do in the Midwest, right? It's like your fridge just fills with casseroles and you're like, I don't know how I'm gonna eat all these casseroles, right? Let me see. Whitney says when a person is missing out on a particular need or has less of it, they want more, so they strive to improve it. An example would be having a job that doesn't pay well. So you decide to go back to school and get a degree for a better paying job. It makes you want more for yourself. I like that. Yeah. And anybody from room 2, that was Avery, Justin, Kylie, and Lauren. And if not, that is okay. We can go on to the second question. So what do we think? Do we agree with the idea that Maslow says we as humans have a need to self-actualize? Does it feel like a need as much as the other needs he describes, and why or why not? Yeah, well, Laura, we over to Alex.
Usually it depends on the person and their situation and like what period in life they are, because kids might not even think about that, but maybe someone who's reaching the end of their life, you may want to have like a need for self-actualization. But we don't think it's necessarily a need like the others, because when we can go through life without self-actualizing, we just really can't go through life without food or water and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read it down.
Yeah, we said something similar, like we don't necessarily use it in needs for a want, and not everybody may possess that want or express it in that way. Some people are just stagnant and like they may want more for them, but they don't.
Yeah, one of the really interesting things we didn't really talk about at the Ericksonian stages beyond puberty that much, but one of the things he talks about in identity development is you can just like go with what your parents tell you, right? Like my parents said I should be a business major, so I'm gonna be a business major. And that's what I'm gonna do, and that's the job I'm gonna have. And yeah, and you can really sort of stagnate there. Cam.
Yeah, it's kind of more the same thing. You talked about how it's more of a desire than need, how it's a little idealistic, and that while many people want to reach their full potential, it's not always possible, and how you can live on without reaching your full potential as it's not a physiological need.
Yeah, and I think that is, I think where most of us really agree, right? Most of us are like, yeah, that makes so much sense. But to Maslow, because of his like obsession with becoming a great American, it felt the same to him. Let me see. Avery says, I'm not sure if it's a need, kind of like when they were saying it depends on the person's individual perspectives. It's not a need like food and water, but it's very beneficial to some people like myself. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yana says, I feel as though we should, but I don't necessarily think it's a need for everyone. I'm the type of person who wants to become the best version of myself so I can relate and understand it in a way. I don't know if I'd describe it as a need though. I feel like everyone comes from different backgrounds and all have different perspectives and how they'd want to live their life. Avery says kind of basically the same thing everybody else says, and then Sadie says, she does feel like there's a need for self-actualizing, and it makes sense once our basic needs are met, we might feel the need to strive for the best version of ourselves. Self-actualization seems less necessary when compared to other needs in the hierarchy, but it's still important for truly understanding ourselves. Yeah, and I like that too. And that's, sometimes being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes like Maslow's can be helpful to look, and again, all positions are definitely valid here. Alrighty, so now we're talking question 3. Roger's views of the observational method, do they seem consistent with what we've learned about research? And in particular, Funder's definition of good research at the beginning of the semester. And what kind of data are these? If we go back to our I, L, B, and S, and Y. So I'm throwing it to anyone in person, folks on Zoom, feel free to copy paste. Let's just throw out, what kind of data did y'all think it was? Just yell it out.
We said,
Go ahead, Gavin, then, Nora.
we said BNS data, but we weren't sure, because I don't know which one's which.
That's okay.
One is like from personal, what people are saying, and then the other one is observational.
Yeah, Nora.
You said B data, but it's not observation.
Yeah, and that's looks like Whitney is saying here, Sarah is saying it's B data. Yeah, you're observing people's behaviors. And like, this is the more obvious B, right? But there are elements of the others in it as well. But then like also, we talked about before, if you have someone like fill out an MMPI, it's technically B data, right? Because you're like observing how they react to the test. I'm not remembering if I told this story in here, or it might have been in my intro class. But like one of my favorite stories about the MMPI is my Professor Jack Graham would sometimes do forensic evals. So he went to do like, I think it was a like competency to stand trial. And so he met this guy in the prison, right? Gave him the MMPI to fill out. It's a big like bubble form, and the guy just wrote across the bubble form, "I am not crazy." And it's like, that doesn't give you the information from the MMPI, but it gives you a lot of interesting information, right? About like sort of non-compliance and things along those lines. Yeah. Anything else that came up here? Does this feel like good research? Yeah.
It's kind of tricky because it's all based off of like the therapist trying to be like objective, and it's all about how they perceive it, and that can be different with like how they do it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's such a good point. It goes back to the problems with case studies that we talked about, right? Way at the beginning of the semester, the idea that, yeah, you might only see things based on your own biases, right? So like Freud was going to interpret little Hans based on his psychodynamic principles, and not like what a behaviorist, or I think just like a logical person would infer. Like a horse fell next to this kid, he thought he was going to get squished, therefore he has a fear. It has nothing to do with the phallus, right? Like, and it could be both, I could see that, right? But yeah, those biases come into play. Alrighty, so for question 4, what are these Rogers quotes from the clients that struck you most, and what resonated about them? I really like that he has these quotes from his patients in them. And again, folks on Zoom, please copy paste. Go ahead, Cam.
It's kind of a longer one, but I spoke to the fact that a person's background would be targets on. Like the fact that my family wasn't good for me, and my mother certainly didn't give me any of the kind of bringing up that I should have had. Well, I've been thinking that over. It's true up to a point, but when you get so that you can see that situation, then it's really up to you. This might be the appropriate thing to say, but it's kind of refreshing to see someone like kind of take personal responsibility like that. I feel like a lot of the times when you're reading stuff like this, it's just always drawn back to like your childhood. There's kind of like a lack of responsibility, but I guess that was refreshing to read.
Yeah, that gets us more into like that existential idea, right? Of like taking responsibility, and like you actively make a choice, even if you're not making a choice, right? Yeah, I think that that's a big piece of it. Let's see, Yana says, the second one resonated with me because I can relate, and I have friends who are college students that can also relate. It reminded me of how we as college students experience the burnout stage and tend to lose motivation. Yep. Professors feel it too. I've seen myself go through phases where I've lacked motivation to get stuff turned in. I could bed rot for hours by watching shows or TikTok videos to get by. Yeah, the doom scrolling, right? It's a little better now. Some people joke about like hope scrolling now, right? So there's a little more positivity, but it still sucks you in, right? And it still could use like hours of your time and you don't realize like, how have I been watching Instagram Reels for 2 hours now? I don't know. But here's a funny one of a cat. Told non sequitur, but my husband's new favorite video, I don't know if people have seen it. There's a little girl on her front porch and she's like, I want to pet that dog. And the dog is a bear. No, you can't. The bear looks like he's into it. I don't know if he was into a bite or like actually getting pet. But yeah, so you know, those things can be distracting and take us away from what we maybe should be focusing on or could be focusing on. Anyone else? Anything else that stood out to you?
There was a woman in the interview, called Ms. Viv, and she had two quotes that were kind of like contradictory. The first one is, I sort of experience things from the forefront of my consciousness, but none of these things are very deep. Things don't seem real to me. I feel nothing matters, and I don't have any emotional response to situations that I'm worried about myself. Then the second quote was, I don't understand myself. I haven't known what was happening to me. So those kind of like contradict each other, which was interesting because she understands that she's not emotionally attached, but then she also doesn't understand herself. So those things.
Yeah, sometimes insight comes in little fits and starts, and that might be what's going on with her, or you know, Rogers isn't always clear. Were those at like 2 different points in therapy? Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it's a really good point that sometimes when we're trying to figure ourselves out, just like when we're trying to figure anything else out, it's not always a smooth trajectory, right? Yeah, I really love that. Gabrielle, did you have something? Okay, same one. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, and so then our Whitney says, the one where the woman says, I'm trying to work through this funny relationship between terrific confidence and the fear of doing nothing. That one stood out to me because it demonstrates self-doubt. Yeah, that one makes me think of Horney's idea, right? That like women in particular might have a fear of succeeding because they're afraid they'll lose friends. And unfortunately, I think we still sometimes see that in modern life. All right, so for number 5, our last one, Csikszentmihalyi talks about flow and people's experiences. When have you come closest to experiencing flow? Yeah.
We talked about like reading books for pleasure over the summer and just really like get into it and then not realize how much time that's passed and just be like, well, what happened? I'm just so into the story that this concept like time just went.
Yeah, I am notorious for, I don't know if you all heard this term, it's called like revenge procrastination, which is like you go to bed and you're like, I haven't had time to myself all day, so I'm gonna read, and then it's like 12:30 at night and I went to bed at 10 and I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? Yeah, that could definitely happen. Other examples? Yeah.
You said schoolwork or even like your job when you're so productive and the day flies by and you realize
Yeah, those are beautiful days, right? I worked retail in high school and college, and I loved the days that were busy. The days that were slow were painful. I was always like, bring me something to do. What can I do? And Yana says, yeah, when working retail, when you're in that moment and everything's clicking, right? I mean, like, as much as it sucked to get up and come to work at 3:30 in the morning, Black Friday was great because you just stayed busy the whole time, right? They also broke us into 4-hour shifts so that we didn't get overwhelmed, which was also lovely. All right, anybody else? I know that some of my athletes have said they've experienced it, like runners high, or like even like my field hockey athletes have experienced it on the field. And then artists, sometimes when they're creating, will experience it as well. All right, well, we'll wrap up early today. Thanks for your engagement. Like I said, you don't have to show up on Monday unless you have questions. I'll be in my office.